This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
All the way from the A, you listen to my favorite lesbian on BRQ.
Hey, stay locked in with your favorite lesbian on Black Radical Queer. Yeah.
Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole, aka your favorite lesbian, and you're listening to Black Radical Queer Podcast, our stories on our own terms. Hey y'all, this is Javia Nicole. Welcome to another episode of Black Radical Queer Podcast. This is the final episode of season 2. And for this episode, I wanted to circle back to a topic that I have touched on before. I haven't dedicated an episode to it or whatever, but it has come up in different conversations and topics on the podcast. But it has kind of returned to the forefront of my mind just because of some recent developments, I guess, in my life. So my wife and my sister-in-law and I have been house hunting. And so we go to look at places. And then sometimes it's been just me and my wife going to the places. Sometimes it's been all of us. Sometimes my mother-in-law has been with us. So in that experience, it's like the way that we're perceived when we enter the spaces or whatever, it's not like folks assume that we're together. And so, I mean, of course, you don't automatically know kind of what someone's relationship is to one another just by seeing them. But we also tend to get the same, we're perceived in the same way most of the time, which is typically what people ask is, are we sisters? And that's pretty much the same if it's just us two or if it's other people or whatever, which, I mean, we get that outside of looking at places, house hunting too. But it's just interesting to me. So I have Courtney on with me today because that was just one aspect of erasure that I wanted to talk about. And then I also talked about it with another former guest, Sarah. It's kind of something that's more specific to her identity though. So anyway, I'll turn it over to Courtney so she can say who she is and all that good stuff. I mean, for folks who've been listening to the show, they already know who she is. But I can't assume that for every person this, they've been listening or whatever for a long time. So I'll give her the opportunity to do that. And then we can talk to y'all about our house hunting experience, I suppose.
Hello, everybody. It's me, the People's Champ, Courtney.
Oh, God. Here we go.
They already know what it is. If you don't know what it is, go back and listen to all the episodes, get your life. Come back and meet me here.
What? Okay.
I'm the wife.
Well, I guess she's the wife this time because we did a previous tape that we had to start over and she said she was single and looking to mingle. So I don't know, but
statement still stands.
Anyway, so if you want me to ship her to you, that's fine. You're gonna have to pay for shipping and handling though, because I'm not paying for that shit. So
I'm out here.
Whatever works. I'll ship a black lesbian to you. Anyway, so as we've been going to these, so over the course of the year, I've been talking about, just centering yourself, really embracing your identity and being unapologetic. But we've also talked about, circumstances where folks aren't necessarily always able to do that, or times where, that identity is erased by the people around you or whatever. So it's something that I think it's always relevant, but for me, I mean, I'm pretty out, so I don't necessarily feel like my identity is erased a lot. I feel like I have a lot of control over it and I pick and choose if I feel like it's, relevant or whatever, but I don't hide it. But in this process, of us looking for a home, we've been asked so many times if we're sisters, which is very interesting to me because we don't look anything alike. But clearly, that is the only option. I don't know. I don't know what your take is.
A lot of times it's been more than just the two of us. And so I think a generalized guess is like, are you sisters? Because sometimes it's been me, you, my mom. Sometimes it's been me, you, Kalita.
Not
me, you, and Daisha.
Well, at first it was me with Kalita.
Yeah, or me, Daisha, and Kalita, and then me, you, Daisha, and Kalita, or me, you, Daisha. So, I know most of the time it hasn't been just me and you, but I'm trying to, just pinpoint when it's just me and you. I don't even remember. You know what I mean? It's been all these weekends are starting to blur together, but yeah, we get the sisters questions a lot. We get that anyways. It is what it is. When I'm with my mother, she kind of introduces us for us.
Well, that's also too because she's a realtor. So like if we're at a place and someone, then sometimes it's like the agent talking to her because she's another agent. So, they're just kind of having that conversation like, oh, she's like, oh, this is, my daughter and my daughter-in-law or something like that. Or these are my daughters and this is my daughter-in-law. So she will automatically kind of say that. But if it's just us two, I think, we have to kind of just decide on the spot, like, okay, are we going to correct this person or are we going to even get into that conversation? Or, because it's like, is it that deep? Or, I think it just kind of depends. I think sometimes we have to balance being out and being safe. And I don't mean safe like, oh, this is like some imminent threat or something, but just like even just being mentally safe in terms of not wanting to have to go through a lot with somebody or not wanting to be in like an awkward situation or whatever by correcting someone. Because on one hand, it's like, okay, well, this definitely not my sister. But on the other hand, sometimes I just don't feel like like going through all of that. I'm just like, okay, we're just about to go. In the grand scheme of things, how much does this matter in this moment? So sometimes I think it just depends on mood. I don't know.
I mean, for me, proving our relationship to strangers is not important. 9 times out of 10, I'll never see these people again. I don't care what they think, and it's safer to let them think what they think rather than confront them. I mean, we both have on wedding rings, so I don't know where our niggas are at. If they assuming we married to niggas that ain't there while we out.
I know we're just out together house hunting, and I guess we left the husbands at home. Even though, we have matching rings. Like, they're not the same ring, but our rings match each other. And, and my ring looks more feminine and yours look more masculine. I don't know. I don't know. And they may not even be paying attention to that. But
context clues, my nigga.
Yeah, but I feel like context clues, yeah. But sometimes I feel like it's so people just can't even fathom. It's just like, oh, well, you must be sisters or you must be like related because they don't even it don't even enter into your mind that we.
I think maybe we just don't look like what the idea of even a lesbian looks like to them.
What do you mean?
Like, because we don't look like Shane and Alice.
Are you supposed to look white?
You know what I mean? Like, okay, I feel like if Shane walked in with a woman, you know what I mean? Even if it was a black woman and Shane, maybe they would be like, oh, okay, they're together and they're gay.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you don't look like what they would expect a lesbian to look like. And maybe I don't either. I don't know. I mean, why? Because I look femme? But I don't always look femme when we go out. I just feel like whatever, if you don't encounter or interact with lesbians often, whatever you have in your mind of what a lesbian looks like is what you assume. So maybe even like for maybe what a black lesbian looks like, maybe that's not what they, you know what I mean? Maybe they're thinking, I don't know, who's a famous black lesbian?
I don't know. But my thing is, the thing to me is,
are there famous black lesbians? Is that the issue?
Lena Waithe. I mean,
but even
she's
that, like for older, even for older people, like, do they think of Lena Waithe? Probably
I mean,
not.
I feel like for older people, what I have seen, and I don't know if it's different out here, but I know definitely in the South, what they think of is masculine. They think butch, you know, but that's not to say that I never look butch when we go look at a property. Like, or, you know what I'm saying, or more masculine or whatever. I mean, just not super girly. Like, sometimes I wear dresses or whatever, but there's other times where, you don't know, I have on a hat, sweatpants, or pants. You know what I'm saying? Just like, it's not a dress. So, or we could be dressed similarly. So, I don't know. I just think that, too, it's just, of course, like, our world is so heteronormative that I just don't think people even kind of factor that into their realm of possibilities. They just like automatically default to sisters, not even cousins, it was weird because, for me in previous relationships, I did get the sisters question sometimes. And I also got cousins because when you look alike, so, you know, it's like, oh, are y'all cousins or something? So yeah, because we did not look like sisters.
Like cousins, I feel like you're asking, okay, are y'all gay? That's basically what you're asking me. Because what a fucking stretch. Like, why would you ask if we cousins?
Because like, oh, you don't look alike. You don't look alike.
Yeah, but I know
y'all must not be together because you're both women. So maybe you're cousins.
Right. That's what that seems like to me. Because who else do you ask randomly?
Are y'all cousins?
Like, that's not a thing.
But even with the are y'all sisters, like, I feel like usually people ask stuff like that when they feel like the people look alike. Like, you see similar features, like, oh, they're mother and daughter, or oh, they're sisters. And we do not look alike. We're both black. But
that's true.
We don't look alike. So that's why I'm saying it's just so interesting to me, like, because you and your sisters look alike, and me and my sisters look alike. We look like sisters. Not like twins or nothing, but I can look at you and Daisha and know that y'all are like, you know what I'm saying?
Sometimes.
Okay. Anyway. And then me and my sisters, like, we look like sisters. Like, I don't feel like you would look at us and be like, are y'all related? Like, it's obvious. That's what I mean. I feel like with your sisters and with my sister, it's obvious. We don't look alike. So.
Yeah. Because even like, so if I were to see you and Arlisha out.
I mean, they don't know who Arlisha is, though.
That's your cousin.
My cousin.
If I were to see you out, and I didn't know you two, I wouldn't be like, are y'all cousins? Because y'all don't look alike. I wouldn't ask what your relationship is like. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
I would either assume you're friend or just, homies kicking, or maybe you are cousins, but why would I ask that? Like,
I mean, too, why does it matter? You know, like, it's like, if it's a stranger, why are you even asking? Exactly. That's the thing, too. I'm like, why are you even asking? Because with that particular cousin, because she's so small, a lot of times, well, definitely when she was younger, not now because she looks more like an adult, but when she was younger, people thought she was my child. And her brother. But I honestly think it was clearly a size thing because they're little and I was taller than them and, older or whatever than them. And maybe they just thought I was a young mom or something. Because I definitely got, like, when I would have them out with me, I got that all the time. But I think it was a size thing. But yeah, that's the other thing too. I'm like, why does it matter?
Because it's interesting because, I mean, I really think it's people pick up on our interaction. They know we're together, and that's what they're asking. Because when it's me and Khalida out, no one asks us, are we sisters? No one asks us if we're cousins. No one asks us those questions.
What about you and Daisha?
No one asks us if we're sisters. Like, the only time people ask me, oh, y'all sisters, is when I'm in a relationship with somebody. That's literally. So
it's like they're picking up on something. They're trying to figure out why.
What's the relationship?
Right. Because, it makes me think of that time we were in a grocery store and I don't know if you remember this. So we're at Aldi and we were just like, not fussing for real, but like kind of like cracking jokes and shit, like back and forth, kind of like play fussing or whatever over something. And then we were just like cracking up. And so this lady behind us, like this older lady was like, oh, y'all must be, she started laughing at something that we did or said. It was like, oh, y'all must be sisters. You don't remember that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm just like, that was so, I'm like, we could have just been friends, but I think it's just like observing the interaction or whatever. Yeah. And it ain't like we just, because I think another thing too is, it's not like we're, all over each other and stuff like that. Like we're looking at a house, so we're talking to each other and stuff. But I think maybe they're observing some level of intimacy or like closeness and trying to put a name to it, you know?
Your niggas nosy. Honest to God, why do y'all care? I don't think I've ever asked anybody like, oh, what are y'all? Like, what's this relationship? Like,
right.
Even if I'm trying to figure it out in my head, I've never been bold enough or felt entitled enough to know what your relationship status is.
It's that part. It's the feeling entitled. Particularly when it comes to queer folks, like people have, like cishet folks have a huge sense of entitlement in terms of knowing kind of the inner workings of our relationships, our sex, all kind of like they want to know stuff, and they really feel like it's okay for them to ask anybody. And the thing is, for some people, they are okay with that. You know, they're like, oh, you know, I want to educate and blah blah. And I'm like, that is not my ministry. No, I don't want to answer your invasive ass questions about my sex life and my relationship and all kind of stuff, because why the fuck does it matter? If we're going to look at a place, or we're just existing in the world, because it ain't only, you know, when we're looking at these properties, that just made me think of it, but we're just doing our grocery shopping. We're just minding our black ass business. Why does it matter to you what our interaction is? And like what Courtney was saying, when she's out with other folks, she doesn't get asked that question. So it's like, I feel like they're observing their interaction and they're just using that as like a way to, you know, kind of get their foot in the door to ask a question about how they see us relating to each other. Cause they're like, but it is just interesting to me that it's like, okay, you feel comfortable even trying to get your foot in the door. Like, cause at the end of the day, why does that matter? What does it have to do with you going on about your day? Like us interacting in the grocery store. What does that have to do with that lady's date? Like, okay, if we are sisters or if we're not, like, how does that impact your day at all? So that's what it's like that. Okay, something's going on here, which people aren't that dumb. I feel like, you know, like people are pretty stupid, but I don't feel like you're that dense. It's like, you know, but then it's kind of like you're trying to, I don't know, prove yourself wrong, or it's kind of like, oh, well, I sense something might be going on here, but I'm kind of like, no, you know, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know. It's like, you know, something's, you know, there's an intimate relationship.
I don't even know what the end game is. So you find out we're gay, and then what?
Right.
Like, what happens after that?
But I mean,
they want to know how we fuck. Is that the next question?
Hey, probably, because that's how they do. I mean, I think
I've always wanted to know.
Right. Well, I got you here. Can you tell me? Can you please enlighten me? I always wondered how the women folks did that. Like, if you don't get out my face, I don't know. But I think you brought up a good point though when you said like, oh, well, when you're out with like your actual sister or your cousin, you don't get asked that. So that's why I'm saying when I say like, okay, people aren't that dumb. It's like, okay, you observe people interacting with each other. You observe siblings interacting with each other all the time, but it's us, you know, that you want to ask about our interaction, and you don't do that with everybody.
But I'd be curious to see, because I'm more masculine presenting, what happens like when I'm not around. Like, do you never get asked this question with other people? Is it only with me?
I've been asked it in other relationships.
But I mean, with when you're not in a relationship.
You mean like with my actual siblings?
Siblings, friends?
No.
You don't get asked?
I do not. Not like when I'm trying to think. When I'm out with friends, I've only been asked that with folks who ain't my damn sister. You know, I've only been asked that, with folks I've been in a relationship with. And it hasn't mattered what their presentation is. It's been femmes. It's been, you know, folks who are masculine of center. I've still been asked that question. I just thought about that. Because I was thinking about it like, is it only? But it's not, because it's been asked when I've dated somebody who was femme too. So, but never with my actual siblings, you know, or friends. And even so, there has to be something to it, because, you know, if I'm even with like my close friends, if we are like just talking, like, you know, there's still can be some degree of like intimacy or closeness in the friendship, but we still don't get asked, that question.
I mean, I'd be curious to get feedback from your listeners, because from what I see with even heterosexual women's relationships, they're all over each other a lot of the times. They're very affectionate towards each other. And so I wonder, do they get asked those questions, or do people assume that they're straight and they're just friends? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, because when I talked to Sarah, which I'm going to insert the clip in this episode, but, she was saying, okay, well, when she was with a guy, because what we talked about in regards to her erasure was like the difference in how she's perceived when she was in a relationship with a man. And that was like her front facing relationship versus being with a woman. And that, so, she went from being perceived as straight to being perceived as a lesbian, even though she is neither, but that's the perception because of who she's in a relationship with. But she was saying, well, when she would be out with her ex, she was like, nobody ever asked if he was my sibling. Nobody ever asked if he was like my brother or nothing like that, or if we're related. They just assume that we're together and they act accordingly. But she was saying with her partner now, who's a woman, like they do get asked. I can't remember if did she say sisters? I feel like she may have specifically said sisters. But I mean, she also has female friends who she's close to, and they haven't been asked that question. So yeah, it is specific. So I feel like, like you're saying, they're just using it as a code type of thing, kind of like, even though damn well that ain't my sister, but you're just asking that because you're trying to have a way to get your foot in the door to basically be in our business. But why does it matter? That's what I don't understand. I'm like, why does this have any bearing on anything?
Maybe we should carry spray bottles with us, and anytime someone asks them to spray them in the face.
Like, treat him like a pet.
Yeah.
Wow. It's so interesting. I feel like we should do like a social experiment. I try to get a few couples to do it, because I've heard other queer couples say. Now, you know what? Something I do wonder with men, like, are men asked if they're brothers? Now, my theory is that no. My theory is no, because men, any relationship involving man, it seems more valid.
Yeah.
So I feel like, no, they be like, them niggas gay.
Yep.
And that is what it is. And nobody questions what their relationship is to each other. That is my theory. But I know for sure other like lesbian couples or other like couples that have like two folks who are not men have definitely said like they've been asked if they're sisters.
I never even thought about it with men, but I wouldn't. I just can't imagine like two men out, just going about their lives and a random stranger like sliding in. Hey, are y'all brothers? Like, cause
just pop out.
Yeah,
just pop out. Like, hey, are y'all but that's how it is for us. And it's
maybe it does happen to them. I'd be curious.
I'm gonna ask. I want to know. I'm gonna put like a question on Twitter, a poll on Twitter or something, because I really want to know if that happens. I really don't think it does. My theory is that it does not. And Sarah described it as like a microaggression. And when I was talking to her, but she was like, yeah, I didn't have those types of like microaggressions when I was with a man, but now, yeah. But yeah, I'm just like, it's very interesting. Another thing too that was different from what she was talking about was she mentioned how people react to them just randomly. Like she said, somebody was, I guess, going past them and was just like, good for you. And I'm like, what? So they get a lot of like uninvited, unwanted attention. But I know they're also probably more perceived as like femme, whereas we're not perceived that way. So, but I didn't really get that when I was with femme. So I don't know. It's interesting, but yeah, it just trips me out that people, that's the code they use. And it happens frequently enough, like, and using that same language, like we don't get asked like, are y'all friends? Are y'all roommates? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, this came back up because we're house hunting, and I feel like maybe because we're house hunting, there's not going to be a jump to friends, you know what I mean? Because, like, you're buying a house together. Or
right.
They're assuming you're buying a house together. What's the relationship?
Right.
Maybe I'll give them that.
Right.
But in the grocery store,
Yeah, that's true, though, because even when we watch... Because, okay, I could just be a friend coming with Courtney to look at a house.
Sure, you could.
You know what I'm saying? But even us, when we watching these shows and people, House Hunters International and a professional butterfly catcher is about to buy a $10 million home. Mm-hmm. And she got this person with her and we're like, and it might say on the screen friend.
We were like,
we were like,
sure, sure, buddy.
Yo, special friend, because there was this one episode and I just remember the whole time, like she was with her the whole time and all the stuff they were talking about. And I'm like,
and her friend's gonna move in with her.
Right. But then in the end, they end up having husbands. I don't know if you remember that when that cabin. No, the one they were like, it was like a cabin or something in a cold area. And they were looking at the place and stuff. But then at the end, they showed them with like husbands and stuff. I'm like, it's still something going on.
And they moved in together?
That's what it was like the one lady stayed there. The other one was just like, would come for vacation sometimes or something like that.
I'm talking about when they were going to be roommates.
Oh, them. I feel like they were a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why, sometimes it's like, okay, well, on the screen, they didn't say that they were together, but the way they were talking to each other and all that, because we were talking about, they seemed like they had like some kind of like DS thing going on. So anyway, so it's just interesting to me. But another thing that's interesting to me is that's kind of it's been like I don't want to say completely universal, but fairly universal way that people try to get their foot in too. Like, I mean, I've been asked that on the East Coast. I've been asked that on the West Coast. But you know what I just thought of? Has a white person ever asked us that? Because I only think of black folks.
Black people.
And I can't think of a white person or a non-black person who's asked that.
I don't think white people give a fuck about what we do walking around, honestly. Not in a sexuality way, I don't. I mean, maybe if we was at like a gay pride parade and there were like some white protesters, I don't know, but
right.
You know what I mean? I don't think, they might just hate us for being black. I don't know if white people are like,
yeah, they see the blackness before they're seeing the blackness overshadows the gayness or something. I don't know, or they just don't care. Because I mean, we've seen places that had white realtors and all that, and they don't ask.
To be honest, I feel more comfortable, which I don't know. I don't think it's probably fair to black people to do this, but I do feel more comfortable saying like, you're my wife to like a white realtor. Or I have felt more. I noticed I did that and I had to check myself.
That's true. Because like when we have seen places and it's been a black person, you don't automatically say it.
I don't say anything.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, I can think of either we just don't say anything. There have been times when, like, I remember somebody asked, and I was like, "No, that's my wife," but I said something. But I can think of a time where we saw something that was shown by like a white realtor, and you said, "That's my wife." So, you got some stuff you got to unpack with black folks. Experiencing homophobia at the hands of black folks. But yeah, so I get what you're saying in terms of like, oh, well, it's probably not fair. I think even if it's not fair, that doesn't mean it's invalid, because we have to pull from our own experiences. And I want to give black people space and room to like grow and kind of like the benefit of the doubt. That does not erase what we have already been through, though. So I can't say just because I want to have all this room and space for the possibility of like, black folks being more progressive in their thinking and all this kind of stuff, that still doesn't erase the homophobia that I've experienced from black folks.
Sure, but it's also ignorant of me to assume that the white person would be more comfortable.
Well, yeah, that's a different thing. Yeah. See, because I can't say I feel more comfortable with the whites. So, yeah, I don't feel more comfortable.
Yeah, I am also on drugs.
That's you revert to everything. Speaking of drugs, all right. So, okay. Anyway, but I just want to circle back to that. And I will drop in the clip. I guess I'll say here. I'll drop in the clip from my conversation with Sarah. So when we did the Breaking Up While Poly episode, I meant to ask Sarah about basically her experience navigating the world as a bisexual woman, but like going from being in a relationship with a man to being in a relationship with a woman in terms of like publicly, because it's not like, it's not like, oh, all of a sudden she's with a woman, but it's like in terms of public perception, the perception was that like, oh, well, everybody's used to seeing her with, you know, this guy that she's been with. And now it's like, okay, when you go to hang out with friends or you just are out and about, you know, shopping, doing whatever, you're with a woman. And so you're going from being perceived as straight to being perceived as a lesbian. So there's like erasure going on there. That's just like its own thing to navigate. So I wanted to ask her what that experience was like transitioning from, in terms of like what was the forward facing relationship that most people were privy to, going from that being a relationship with a man to that being a relationship with a woman, what that experience was like for her. So I have her here with me so that she can tell me, because I forgot to ask. We just talked about so much stuff that I had it jotted down and forgot to circle back to that. And so I want to circle back to that for this episode. So I'll let her share her thoughts and stuff of navigating that.
Well, that's a big question. I think that the way I would summarize it to start would be that everything goes to extremes now. When I was viewed as heterosexual, because my primary partner I was in public with was male, we didn't really get bothered. People assumed I was heterosexual. They treated me as such. And there were little, things that I considered microaggressions, like them always handing him the bill. But it was things that I think I would experience as a heterosexual person. My queerness, my bisexuality was never acknowledged in that space. Being in a relationship in a public setting with a female partner has been very different. I either experience people who almost fetishize it or make it like a circus act, or I have people who just they're still the erasure. They just continuously say things like, "Oh, that's your friend," and I don't think either has been worse for me. They both are equally annoying. I guess as far as people being outlandish, like if I'm walking down the street, people will be like, "Good for you."
What?
That's happened to my partner and I a lot.
What?
Like people coming up and being like, "We're so proud. You're brave." Like,
what the fuck? What?
That's happened a lot. And
that is fucking strange.
Sometimes we laugh, sometimes we ignore it, sometimes we say something. It's just like, what do you... It's very awkward. And people don't go up to heterosexual people and go, "Good job. Like, way to be a straight person.
You're really doing this straight thing just right. So proud. You really got that down right." Oh, what the hell?
The only time that it's been somewhat positive, and it was probably more humorous, was these two, and it's almost always men. I can't actually recall a time that women did that weren't also queer and were like, "Hey, like, y'all are a cute couple."
Right. But not being weird. Talking about,
weird,
"This is brave. Congratulations."
Fighting the good fight.
It's like DJ Khaled. Congratulations. Like, what?
It's always men, and it's almost always black men. Sometimes there's some like perverted comments, but the only time that it was just too interesting to be problematic was these guys were walking past my partner and I, and one of them said, "Oh, that's so nice to see, especially because they're both femme."
That's interesting.
It was interesting. So it was so interesting, I couldn't quite be offended, because I was like, well, you're not
wrong.
You're not wrong.
Right, because
But
people
also
automatically assume that, it's that the dynamic is going to be femme stud, and so if it's, stud or femme or whatever, or perceived that way, that's looked at as an anomaly. And it's like some people who that's looked at as less valid. Like, it's so weird to me, because the different feedback it's kind of like, okay, well, when you're with a guy, it's like, okay, well, that's seen as valid, like inherently valid. So people aren't really going to say anything, and then they're just going to kind of, like you said, do the stuff that they normally do, like give him the check and stuff like that. But with a woman, it's like either folks are going to go out of their way to not, because it's like, "Oh my God, this is so foreign that you're so brave that you're doing this revolutionary new thing. Like, being gay ain't nothing new. Like, people being gay, we've been out here in these streets." Or it's like, oh my God, you know, looking like, okay, that's weird. Or I have legit been asked, how does that work? Somebody asked me, they're like, yeah, so how does that work? The fuck do you mean, how does it work? And they were talking about basically sexually. And I'm like, it works very well.
Appropriate.
I'm like, it works very well. That's how it works. Like, I'm probably works better than whatever you got going on. But so people also feel like this sense of entitlement. They feel like they have an accessibility. There's a different level of accessibility that people feel like they have to you when you are queer that they don't feel when you're straight. And so it's like things people ask you about your sex life and all kinds of stuff. People don't ask straight folks that stuff. They don't ask them that. But with queer folks, it's like they feel like they just have an open invitation to ask all kind of very personal things that's none of their fucking business.
Also, they'll make passes at your partner. Straight and queer people feel a lot more comfortable when I'm with a female partner making passes in my face. And we're poly, but that still doesn't mean, well, people don't know that most of the time, but that still doesn't mean you can just walk up and interrupt our conversation and be overtly sexual or pervy or even attracted with no respect for just because we're both women. It doesn't change anything.
It's not that relationship isn't seen as valid. Like, it's not seen as serious. It's like, oh, well, that's not that deep. When it's like I'm like, well, that's my fucking wife. It is that deep. You know what I'm saying? Or like, that's my partner, whoever, like, it is that deep. But people don't look at it the same way versus like when you're with a guy, it's inherently that deep. You know, that nigga could just be your friend with benefits. Like, that ain't even my man, you know, type of thing. But if y'all together, y'all could just be on a snack run. Like, that ain't your nigga. You know what I'm saying? Like, we just get together from time to time, do what we do. But they're going to automatically see that as like, oh, that's your man. You know what I'm saying? And not engage with you a certain way because of that. And the assumptions people make, like, when I did date a guy, nobody said, oh, is that your brother? But I get all the time, is that your sister?
That's a big one that I've experienced.
Is that your sister? Like, oh, are y'all sisters? We get that more so than friends. A lot. They're like, oh, that's your sister? No.
And you two look nothing alike.
We don't look alike. Like, we're both black. We don't look alike. So it's kind of like that type of stuff where it's like people don't even, it's like they can't even wrap their mind around the fact that, like, you could have some other type of relationship to each other besides friendship or like being familial. Like, that's not my sibling. That's not my cousin. That's not my friend. And I've, made it a point to be like very, for the most part, very adamant. Sometimes there are exceptions, but yeah, it's just crazy to me. Like, that's your friend? This ain't how I interact with my friends. Like, no. It's just very... So, yeah, it's just like, because our society is so heteronormative, it's just like, oh, there's no way that you all's relationship could be outside of these few options or whatever.
Even when men have been brought in, like, we went on a date with a guy, and we intentionally centered one of us when the three of us walked together because we're nerdy, and we were like, let's do a social experiment, so we'll all hold hands. Everybody was focused on him and acting like he had these two women, when in fact we were actually the couple, and he was kind of the just side situation.
Right.
But it's just,
I mean,
it's a lot.
Charmaine talked about that when I did the episode with y'all, the bisexual, it was like bisexual, like, visibility or something episode, and that's what she said. She said her and her husband and, like, their partner tried that same thing, and people treated him the same way.
Doesn't matter. It's just... And on top of all of it, either way, there's still erasure, because even when I've gone out with my primary female partner and had a male with us, whether it was a friend or someone we were dating, it's always centered that way, or it's we're lesbians, and neither one of us are lesbians. And it's not that we're going to necessarily walk around and announce our sexual orientation, but the way that people assume it, and then when they're corrected are still adamant, is offensive. Like, people want to argue with you.
They want to tell you, like, no, you're not. Yes, the fuck I am. Like, how are you gonna tell me? Yeah, people will absolutely try to tell you, like, your own identity, and that's so crazy to me. I'm like, you don't even know me like that. Yeah, it's just very strange to me, how bold people are. People are very bold. People have a lot of audacity in the way that they approach folks. I'm just like, one day it's like, they're going to get into a situation where they really approach the wrong person with that. And there's going to be consequences because everybody's not going to respond to that as like a teachable moment or even just ignore it or whatever. Somebody's going to be fed the fuck up and they're going to clap back, maybe physically. And then, folks want to get in their feelings or whatever, or say, and the onus is always on us. So it's like, let's say, there's a time like I'm out, my partner folks did the whole, are y'all sisters? And I'm like, no, that's my wife, or no, that's my partner, or whatever. And then they want to kind of, take on this attitude like I'm wrong or like I'm tripping because I correct them like, no, we're married. Like, that's my wife, that's my partner, that's my spouse or whatever. And then they kind of get this like, oh, okay, type of thing. And really what it is their own discomfort. But they kind of like project it like I'm tripping. And I'm like, I'm not tripping because you made an assumption. Because if we really approach things with an open mind, first of all, you wouldn't assume any type of relationship between anybody. Like, if you don't know these folks, you shouldn't assume that you know what their relationship to each other is.
And why do you care?
Exactly. Why is it any of your business? Like, I don't get why it matters. And then two, with you being corrected, like, you shouldn't feel any kind of way because you shouldn't have made the assumption in the first place that they're you know what I'm saying? It's like you're just looking at somebody, you created a whole story for them. That's crazy to me. Like, oh yeah, they're sisters. Like, when me and Courtney went to the grocery store one time, and this lady was like, oh, we were kind of like play fussing back and forth, talking shit, whatever, to each other back and forth, and joking around and stuff. And she was like, oh, y'all must be sisters or something like that. And I'm like,
first of all, why you in my business? Second of all, what?
I don't understand. So I'm just like, I don't know how she came to that conclusion. And we wear wedding rings.
You must have your husband somewhere. They must be in the car waiting.
We wear matching rings. Our rings match. Okay. So yeah, it's just so interesting to me, the things that people assume, and then they kind of get in their feelings when they're corrected or whatever. But so has there been any upside to navigating in a relationship with a woman versus with a man? Like, has there been any, I guess, outside of just perception, like what has been different for you?
I think it's been more affirming as a bisexual person because my queerness, maybe not my bisexuality, but my queerness is more affirmed. So I feel like I belong more. And that's more of my own stuff, and I get that. But when you walk around and you're constantly seen as heterosexual, for me, not saying
for a long time too.
Heterosexual people, it felt worse. I felt even more outside of my...
Something wrong with heterosexual people. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Offend the heteros.
The straights got some issues, okay? Listen, I don't know if any some straights listen to my show. Y'all know y'all got issues. Y'all know y'all crazy. But y'all listen to me, so y'all not too bad.
But for the most part, it's just not my ministry. So I'd rather be, although, there's issues from the other side too, I'd rather be seen as a lesbian versus a straight person. And that's been nice. And it's been affirming. I think that outside of that, it's small, but the microaggressions are less. We do get a lot of like craziness, people shouting out, but like the paying with the check, who gets the check, opening the door, like we don't get as many problems, and that's never been a big thing that's bothered me. But it is nice to have, as somebody who has a lot of intersectionality with depression, getting one thing off my plate is nice. Other than that, I mean, I think that I've learned, and this is more personal to me, that I'm more like homo-romantic. So I get more joy out of being out in the open with the woman than I would with a man. It just makes me happier. Like, the public displays of affection and like having that relationship out in public, to me, just overall, it's just more affirming. I feel more happy.
Ew, that's gay.
A little bit.
But that it makes sense to me though. I think erasure is definitely a huge thing, and it's something that I'll also talk a little bit more about with the wife. But because she'll be on this episode too. But yeah, especially just kind of navigating the world because like men don't deal with the same thing. Men, if they're engaging with each other in a certain way, like they are seen as a couple. It's not like, oh, they must just be friends. People are like, oh, okay, when they have a certain type of closeness and stuff, then people are like, oh yeah, they, you know what I'm saying, they're together. But because relationships with women they're seen as like not serious, they're seen as phases, they're seen as like placeholders, then a lot of the erasure comes from that, because it's just like, oh no, it can't be that serious because, you know, there's no man involved. So it can't be that serious, especially like if it's femme, it's like, oh, there's no one who's like overtly masculine involved.
You get a lot of, oh, you just haven't met the right one.
Right. But even with me being with someone who is, who does present somewhat masculine, because I'm not like hard, but is more masculine of center, it's really interesting because when I've dated femmes, I've dated like folks all over the presentation spectrum, because I just loves the people. Okay. So I don't care about like, I don't stick to like one kind of presentation. Like if you fine, you fine. I don't care. But what I've noticed is that in my marriage, because like I've dealt with women who were more masculine of center in the past. And so like when people engaged with us, there was like a lot of heteronormativity around that. And like they would do stuff like give her the check and all that kind of stuff. And but in my marriage, I would say it's a mixture. There are times where people do engage with us that way, where it's like they're handing her the check, or they're you know, kind of looking to her as that masculine person, but not as much as in other relationships. Like in other relationships that I was in with like masculine of center women, it was all the time. Or when I've been that person who's more masculine of center, it was all the time. But in this relationship, it's not all the time. Sometimes, you know, I get the check, or sometimes folks just, they kind of don't know, you know? But yeah, so it hasn't been quite the same, but it's just interesting to me. So I feel like there's so many different ways that erasure comes about. And so that's why it was something that I wanted to circle back to, especially because like in each, I mean, of course, it's like there's no way that somebody's going to know just on sight, you know, what your orientation is. But people still make assumptions based on like who they see you with. And I think just one of the things that we can do better in general is to not assume things. Like if we don't know someone, we really shouldn't be assuming things about them. We shouldn't be assuming what their orientation is. We shouldn't be assuming what their pronouns are. We shouldn't be, not preferred pronouns, but pronouns. Just to be clear. But we shouldn't be assuming that we know what their identity is. Just because y'all are both femme presenting, that still doesn't mean that, I mean, you know, one of y'all could be non-binary. One of y'all, I mean, there's a lot of...
my partner's actually not femme.
Right.
So...
she is not.
Just to throw that wrench in there.
She's not femme. So, yeah, she's more so like boy, like B-O-I, boy. She's kind of a girly boy. But still, you know, not really femme, more tomboyish than that. So it's like, we really shouldn't make assumptions about anything, because we don't know. Unless we know the person, we don't know. But people just think that they know stuff and they feel like they're entitled. And I think that for one, we need to get away from making assumptions, and two, there needs to be this departure from feeling entitled, like someone is obligated to give you access to all the information about them, because they don't have to. Like, they ain't got to do that. And so, you know, I've tried to make it a point to either just not do it, like just kind of like move on about my business, or correct people, you know, when they're wrong. So, but anyway, yes, I wanted to circle back to that. Did you have any other thoughts in regards to erasure?
I would just say that I will just want to say to people out there, don't feel the need to explain yourself to others, because you're valid regardless. And for those that are curious, like, explore why you're curious and do your own research. There is the internet. There are places you can go and get educated in appropriate settings, but don't harass people.
Right.
Just don't do it. It's not cute. But that's it.
I would agree. It ain't cute. That shit ain't cute. And no one's obligated to educate you. No. And I just think that the older I get, the more I depart from that. I'm like, I ain't no damn teacher. Like, I have more space for, and y'all, look, my listeners, y'all already know, I have more space for certain people, but in general, I'm like, nobody is obligated to educate you. We have, with all this technology, we have the world at our fingertips, and that's a world of knowledge. So we got to do our own fucking work. We can't just assume that people are going to teach us and then get in our feelings when they don't, or when they don't want to, because you don't know how many times this person has been subjected to that, been put in that position where they're having to basically justify their humanity. And ain't nobody got time for that shit. And people get tired of that. No one should have to do that. So we got to, take some initiative and do our own research and not just be like, hey, can you explain this to me? Because folks are fucking tired. And if the answer is no, then it don't make no sense to get in your feelings about it, because that's their right to protect themselves and to not utilize their energy in that way. So yeah, that shit ain't cute. We got to do better. All right. So yeah, I wanted to circle back to that. So that was that. And now back to chatting it up with the wife. All right. So moving on from that, the other thing that we wanted to touch on has to do with therapy. So I, over the course of the year, I've been talking about the censoring yourself. So the things I wanted to focus on, erasure and that kind of stuff. This idea of like balancing, being out and being safe. And we already touched on that. And then I, talked to, and I'll drop in a clip from Sarah too about her experience with erasure and, particularly what makes her situation different as a bisexual woman. And in terms of censoring yourself, so we talked about like embracing identity, being unapologetic, all that kind of stuff. Another thing that I've talked about a lot over the course of the year is mental health and wellness. And I feel like this idea of safety and like being out and all that relates to wellness. And also, of course, our mental health relates to wellness. So Courtney mentioned to me wanting to talk about therapy. And as y'all know, I've mentioned, many times that I'm in therapy. On this show, I mentioned, what my particular mental health struggles are in terms of persistent depressive disorder and PTSD and all this other stuff. So it's not a secret. And I purposefully am not secretive about it because I don't want there to be a stigma around it. And I think that it's important for more Black people to talk about mental health and mental health care and diagnoses and all that kind of stuff, so that it's not this taboo thing. And because a lot of times we feel a lot of shame. We feel a lot of shame around either like wanting to seek some kind of help or needing help or having a diagnosis. And I don't want to be ashamed, particularly of something I have no control. Like I have control over my management of it, but I don't have control over the fact that, hey, I went through traumatic things, or hey, I have this diagnosis. I just have control over what I choose to do for my self-care and for my management of what I'm dealing with. So I shouldn't be ashamed or made to feel ashamed for the fact that this thing exists in me, So anyway, Courtney mentioned want to talk about therapy. So what did you want to talk about?
Yeah, so just echoing my beautiful wife's words that she so eloquently put out there. I started therapy in October this is the third time, second and a half time I've started therapy in my life.
Okay, what? Second and a half? Yeah, you just can't skim past.
So the first time I did, I was in college, and it was a white woman, and at the time she kind of had the face of the devil that I was running from, so she couldn't help me. And
face of the devil, like what? You're running from white folks? No, I'm trying to understand.
So the reason why I didn't know this at the time, but I was struggling with like imposter syndrome, and I was at this rich ass white school with a bunch of rich ass white folks, and I was like, I don't feel like I belong here, and I was really struggling with it. And so, when I go into the therapy office and she was there, you know what I mean? I couldn't connect with her, and I didn't open up with her. So it was a fail from the beginning.
So were you just like silent in your sessions with her? How many times did you go see her?
I don't know, once or twice.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it didn't take long for you to move on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the second time it was counseling, not therapy.
Okay.
And she was a Christian, so I shut down. I mean, I did like 10 sessions with her, but I wasn't forthcoming at all, and I wasn't honest with her. It's just a bullshit way to get my mom to kind of back off. Because she was paying for it. So I was like, yeah, I'll go, sure. Well, I didn't go anywhere. The lady came to the house, so.
Interesting.
Cool. That was cool, whatever. So this is like the first time I'm legit like being honest and opening up, and
you're invested.
Yeah, and I'm like really trying to get, you know, quality mental
and mama
health
ain't
care.
paying for it.
And neither am I. So
well, technically,
I guess with my labor
exactly
at work, but there's no copay.
The way the healthcare set up,
right?
Gang.
Yeah,
you know?
So there's no.
Very grateful.
There's no copays. It's pretty cool.
One benefit of being married.
Yeah.
That dual coverage coming through for some real niggas.
I know, because I've seen her like, I don't know how many times in this past month, like a lot. So if I had to pay every single time, that would be racking up. But since I don't.
Oh, we'll be drowning in debt from therapy if we had to pay.
Not drowning in debt.
For me.
We would not be drowning in debt.
For me, because.
How much would a copay be, Javia? Stop it.
Shit is real. I got issues, okay? So I require I require the big guns. Okay.
Anyways. So
shit is real out here, man.
I've been going since October, and it's been awesome. My therapist is not a black woman, and I thought, like, as soon as I sat down and she wasn't black, I was gonna be like, nah. But
she's a woman of color,
she's
right?
a woman of color, and she's really cute. So.
Oh Lord, that's all it takes for this heathen. Such a thought. She's like, oh, she cute, so I got a little time. That's Courtney, okay? Like, I don't want to do this. Oh, but she cute. I guess I got time for that.
I went in thinking I was gonna do it, and
I was like, I got time for that.
During my intake, I was just thinking, okay, she's not black, so after I do done with this intake, I will, find a black therapist.
Yeah, that's what I said too. Well, because my therapist is a black man, and I wanted a black woman. So when I saw him for the first time, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to find, see, can they give me somebody else? Because I really wanted a black woman. But, he, I don't know. He pulled out the big guns, I guess, and was saying some stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I got a little time. So, but it's not because of attraction like my wife, she's just a thought. And so.
Yes, yeah. I am a thought. And that speaks to me. Okay. Find something that speaks to you.
Whatever.
I don't know if I could be with an ugly therapist.
Wow.
Because I am such a terrible person. She got
to work that out in therapy.
Yeah, my therapist told me to stop saying I'm a bad person, so I am going to take that back. I have.
She has issues. She has bad person tendencies.
I have bad person tendencies, but I am not a bad person.
You're not a bad person. I wouldn't be with you if you were a bad person.
Anyways, I've learned a lot, and she has been coming through with something. I'm like, oh shit, like you're good at your job, and you really helped me see some things, and it's only been going on 2 months, so it's a beautiful thing when you're invested and you're actually looking for help and not there to bullshit.
We've been together for a long time, and I've been telling Courtney, like, you need to go to therapy.
Well, this was the right time because I found the right one.
Okay. Anyway, but yeah, folks, have to do stuff on their own time and all that type of stuff. But, it does matter because I think therapy can be beneficial for everyone. We all have things that we need to process through, and, and particularly for Black folks and particularly for Black women, I think, we just have a lot of stuff that we need to process through, and we need to be able to do so, especially because we play in our lives, we often play a role of like a caregiver, a nurturer, a listener, a supporter, a worker, a laborer. So we're doing all these things where we're giving of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so we need to have a place that does not expect us to labor in that way. Now, not saying therapy is not labor. At least for me personally, therapy is work. It is hard, but I'm not expected to go into therapy and support my therapist. And I feel like we're in a lot of the spaces we navigate, we're expected to go in and either we're, at a job, so we have to, do labor, or we're just expected to because that's what we're expected to do as Black women.
Yeah, that's true. I get to be vulnerable which I'm still kind of working on because I don't really want to be vulnerable with her. So I need to work on that because that's what I'm there. She's there for that. But I actually went there for weight loss, interestingly enough, and I'm learning, I'm getting help on so many other issues. It's like an onion, just peeling back layers.
Well, because you're a whole person, so things are connected,
Mm-hmm.
You're not a compartmentalized entity.
Oh,
so
thank you for telling me that.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, it's like different things that you go through, impact each other. So, I mean, I went to therapy for a very specific thing. Like, I'm in a depression management program. So this really the sole purpose of the program is to help. It's supposed to help me to learn to manage living with depression long term because of what my diagnosis is, as opposed to just dealing with a bout of depression, like being able to manage depression that happens over the long term. So managing the day to day and all that kind of stuff when depression is something that it's when it's a chronic thing. For some folks, it's not chronic. For some folks, it's like acute. You have a bout of it, and then you can move on from that, and then you're not depressed anymore. But that's just not the nature of my depression. It's not like there won't really be a time where it's like, oh, you're not depressed anymore. It's just like, but it can decrease. I can go from severe to moderate to mild, type of thing, and it'll fluctuate. So it's like, how do I manage? But in this program, just because of the therapist, he doesn't stick to the confines of the program. And it's just because of things that come up. So if things come up, he absolutely will not just let me breeze past it. Somebody says something, he'll be like, And I'm like, oh Lord. And he's like, okay, but you said something there. Okay, so we're gonna veer away from what we were talking about and just kind of focus on that. So he'll, actually point it out. So there are things that we've discussed that go beyond just the depression management that's, have the other stuff to deal with. So It has been impactful in other ways.
Yeah. I've,
Stop. That tickles.
I like my therapist because
she's attractive. Because I'm a fat pocket. Stop.
I like her because
why are you talking like that? Are you talking like Moira?
Baby.
Okay, so side note, we just were watching Schitt's Creek. I don't know if I've mentioned this show on my show before.
Self-care, watch it.
But Schitt's Creek is hilarious, y'all. It's so good. And it sparks joy. Mm-hmm. It sparks joy for us. So sometimes we just randomly quote or imitate the folks on there. So don't mind us. But if you haven't seen it, is it on Netflix?
Netflix, yeah.
And Hulu.
And Roku.
And Roku. If you have Roku, I think it's Roku TV.
Roku channel.
Yeah. So yeah, it's great.
If you're in Canada, you probably got it.
Yeah.
On Pop.
It's on Pop in Canada, but because I do have folks around the world. But yeah, it's really funny. And if you like, kind of like dry humor, I don't know, it's very funny, and not just the things they say, but the things they do too. Like their physicality is very funny too. So we get a kick out of that. But I digress. You're saying you like your therapist?
I like her because she is not afraid to call me on my bullshit, which I need in a woman.
She needs outside of me.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I like you is because you're not afraid to call me on my bullshit, right?
That's
so
why
I need that in a therapist.
Yeah.
She also ain't afraid to crack jokes on me when I'm being ridiculous. So that's
which is good.
Helpful that she's not like, stick up her butt kind of like person. She's funny and she can be funny.
You gotta have when you're doing therapy, you gotta have somebody who you can, connect with in that way. Cause you don't want to feel like, oh, this person is judgmental. Oh, this person is, you know what I'm saying? And that's, that having that relatability, helps to build rapport. Cause that's something I said to Courtney about my therapist. I'm like, he calls me out and I'd be feeling some kind of way, But I'd be like, you right though. But I'd be kind of like low key side eyeing him, like, you ain't have to call me out like that, but you're not wrong. But you know, but it really is very eye opening because he'll say something, I'll be like, or he'll say something that I have thought about and I couldn't put the word, like I didn't know what it was called. Like, oh, I know I do this, but what does that mean and how do I move forward? You know, type of thing. And he does crack jokes because I'll be like, but I got to do this and I got to do that. And he just like, hey, you know, he kind of reins it in. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and she's also young. I don't know how old she is, but I have a feeling she's around my age. And so when I say, I don't know if this is TMI, she's not like 80 years old and she's like, what is TMI? You know what I mean?
TMI is not a youthful thing to say.
No, but there's no translation when I'm speaking. You know what I mean? Like she understands what I'm saying.
That's good.
Yeah. So
it could be draining if you have to explain. She looks like she just got out of college in the last 5 years. Like, you know, with her master's or whatever she has. Like, she's not old. If she's in her 30s, it's very early 30s. She's still hipping with it.
Yeah. I mean, she's also brown, so she could be 70. I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah, but there's no translation when I'm speaking. She gets it. She gets my, what's the word? My my social references, you know what I mean? If I'm referencing a movie or something like that, or something going on, and she understands things like that. You know, I don't have to explain shit to her. Even when she's trying to explain something to me, and she's bringing up something, it's things that I know. You know what I mean? So I feel like we're both millennials, obviously, and so that's helpful.
I hadn't even thought about that because my therapist is older, but I realized like I don't have to explain, you know what I'm saying, like social references and stuff to him. I don't know. I mean, he's black. I don't know how old he is. I can tell he's older because even kind of like, because he always telling me I'm so young. You know what I'm saying? He's like, you're only 31. Like, that's like one of his favorite things to say. Like, he's like,
yeah, but she doesn't.
You're
do that
31.
To me, so that's how I kind of feel like we're around the same.
He's like, you're 31. But just because, yeah, I be trying to do all the things. And he's like, you have time to do these things. He's like, you know, I'm older than you, but I have time. You know, so that kind of thing. I don't know how old he is. He could say he was like, I would say maybe he's 50. He might be 70. I don't know. He ain't got no wrinkles. Honestly, if he dyed his hair, I wouldn't know because like his hair is gray. That's what gives me a clue that he's older. Because he ain't got no kind of wrinkles. But anyway, yeah, that's important to not have to like, to not have to basically teach your therapist. Because if you're making references and they're not getting them, then you're having to teach them. And that ties into like competence, like the competence of your therapist to be able to work with you. And so my therapist is definitely older, but I don't have to explain. And I'm, you know, and it's something we both, I think you do more than me, but in terms of like joking through certain things or like joking really partially as a defense mechanism. But like even when I crack jokes or I say, look, like he's not like looking at me crazy and he can like respond right back, you know, to me. And like just being like witty, like he's very quick, you know what I'm saying? So I'll say something, he'll be right back, you know, with me type of thing. So that's important because if I had to like teach him to be my therapist, like that's draining. I'd be like, okay.
I think part of the reason why I definitely wanted a black woman therapist is I thought I might have to teach somebody, but I haven't run into that issue. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's been nice. She gets me.
Oh Lord. It does matter, you know, to be able to, because therapy is a vulnerable thing and it is work. So to be able to, have a facilitator who can relate to you and all that kind of stuff and who you feel comfortable with, it makes a huge difference. You can't do the work. An issue I had in the past in terms of trying out therapy was just that I felt like there was a disconnect. Like I didn't feel like that person could fully relate to me. So certain references I would make, they would not understand. And I felt like too much of my energy was spent trying to just, cultivate like a baseline for us to operate from. And so if I'm doing that work, then I can't actually do what I'm there to do. So I leave out not feeling like I've done anything meaningful for me and my health and my, you know, wellness or whatever. So, and ain't nobody got time for that. So, I'm grateful that that's not the situation. But, I see a lot of, a couple things. Like, I see a lot of folks, a lot more people, especially our generation, millennials, gang, a lot of our generation who are going to therapy and being very vocal about it, not hiding, you know what I'm saying? The fact, like, it used to be taboo to say that you went to therapy or you had a therapist. Now it's like, this is a common topic of conversation to be like, yeah, so my therapist said, people reference their therapist like they would reference like, oh, well, my friend said this or my mom said this, without anybody looking at them crazy, because it is not an unusual thing to be in therapy. And that definitely used to be taboo. But the other thing is, I still see a lot of the rhetoric that, oh, well, Black folks don't believe in therapy and, you just got to go to church. And so there's a lot of that has to be unpacked. But I just want to say that there is a lot of valid mistrust of the healthcare system from Black people. So I don't want to minimize that. I absolutely think mental health care is imperative, but I also think that people there's still some, like a long way to go for some folks. And I think that it's like for some people who do have apprehension about going to therapy, about seeking out healthcare in general, that is valid, because we have in our history been used as fucking guinea pigs by the healthcare system. We're seen as like, we have a higher pain threshold. We have this, we can withstand anything. It's not as serious. We're exaggerating when we express like what we're going through. And then you have a lot of mental health care providers who are not culturally competent. So this mistrust of the healthcare system is very deeply ingrained and valid as fuck. So I try to keep that in mind with those people who are kind of like, oh no, I ain't trying to tell them folks my business, because that's not unfair. And then we have a long way to go, because, it's just a long way to go. But I am glad to see that, particularly with our generation, and particularly with Black women, we've been more and more vocal about seeking out therapy and stuff like that and sharing that with people.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed of it. When I teach classes, I mention it casually, and I make a point to mention it casually. Like, I have an activity about time. And so, one of the little lines I dropped is, if I had more time in my day, I might see my therapist more often. Things like that, like casual, just drop it and keep moving. Like, it's nothing, you know what I mean? When I'm posting on Facebook, things like that, like, just might mention it casual, like it's nothing. I don't make a big deal out of it. I don't make a, soapbox speech about it. It's not, it's just casual conversation, day-to-day life. It's not a big deal. And that's kind of how I talk about it, even at work, when I'm talking to, I'm going to my therapist after work. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. It's not something I'm
But that helps to normalize, helps to normalize it, because, and then too, for me, like in the field that I work in, we work with a lot of people who do have mental health care issues and who do deal with depression and anxiety and PTSD and all this type of stuff. And a lot of my peers and I have some lived experience with the issues that the populations we're working with deal with. So for instance, we work with homeless people. Some of my coworkers have been homeless before. We deal with, veterans. I have veterans who are that kind of thing. So I make it a point to mention, like when we talk about mental health, I make it a point to say, I have clinical depression. I have persistent, to say, like, to put a face to it, like, hey, this person that you work with every day, I am dealing with this. So this is it makes it less other. This is not just them. It's not just them who going through this, but it's me too. So, I participated in like this convening thing, not too long ago with some coworkers they're not my team, but we all are in the same role in different parts of LA. So we came together and we're talking, and then this lady, she was talking about a client of hers. She was like, she has depression. I don't know. Basically she didn't know how to like approach stuff with her because she's like, she deals with depression. She has seasonal depression and blah, blah, blah. So she's talking. And so I was like, well, I was like, well, since I've been here, I don't deal with the seasonal depression as much. I was like, I have kind of more so seasonal grief, but I have had, when I was in Georgia, I absolutely had bouts of seasonal depression. And so I was talking to her about just like working with someone who's depressed. And I'm like, okay, well, if you just kind of go to her and ask her what she needs and don't assume that or don't try to like dictate, just ask her what support she needs. And that's the best way to go about it. So and I was like, I understand as someone who has depression as well as someone who has worked with people with depression. So being able to put a face to these things, they become less abstract or less like, ooh, depression, anxiety. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, these are people, like, these are connected to real ass people. You see me every day. Like, hey, I am depressed and I'm here at work. Like I'm working, I'm doing the things, you know what I'm saying? So just to put a face to it, I think helps to normalize it and mention it casually. Like Courtney said, I definitely do that too. And y'all already know, cause I mention it a lot, on the show too, just cause I don't want to be ashamed. I can't say that I always felt like this, cause I had a lot of feelings just about depression in general. But as I'm getting older and as I'm kind of just making my way, I definitely try to make it a point to mention it casually and mention it, fairly frequently, because to put a face to it. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, somebody deals with this.
That's deep.
That's Courtney's favorite thing to say. All right. So
that's deep and that's cute.
Wow. All right. So I think I don't know how long we've been recording. So anything you want to add before wrapping up? Anything you want to see from BRQ in the next year? Because this is the last episode of 2019.
Whoa.
So y'all ain't gonna hear from me again till 2020.
Whoa.
So anything that you want to say?
I just want to hear more from myself. I think your show is sorely lacking in Coco episodes.
Ay. Okay. Really?
There.
Simmer down.
Yeah. But no, you own it. You running the shit. You the boss. You know how you do. So I'm always behind you 1000%. Good shit, Joe. Love you, buddy.
My wife is a jerk.
No, I am not a jerk. Oh my
gosh. She has jerk tendencies.
But
she is not a jerk. She has jerk tendencies. She is not an asshole. She has asshole tendencies.
I make asshole moves.
Right.
But I am not an asshole.
I'm not an asshole. I make asshole moves.
Thank you.
Hey. All right. Okay, so that's it. I mean, we've been recording for a while. I don't want this episode to be all ridiculously long. It's already going to be pretty long. So. What'd you say?
It's the last one. So
yeah. Hopefully y'all will be all right with the length, because it is the last one of 2019. So what I'm excited for 2020. I have a couple of things that I know that are coming up, but I ain't going to tell you until I come back in 2020. But I'll just say it's some BRQ stuff that requires me to be actually in front of some people, not just on audio, but face to face with folks and stuff. So that should be cool. And I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for supporting the show. And I need to not forget to mention, I am on Patreon. So that's Patreon, patreon.com/BlackRadQWR, BLK RAD QWR. I didn't forget. So, I also, contributions can also be made via Venmo and Cash App, Black Rad Queer, across all the things. I think that's it, y'all. I don't know what else to say. So, okay, there's that. But thank you for tuning in this year. It has been so interesting. I've hit more than one milestone in this year. I hit 10K and 20K in this year. So that's dope. I got a few more patrons, so that's dope. And y'all are still giving me good feedback on the show. So that is also dope. So I'll be back with season 3, January 2020. When it gets closer to the date, I'll start, letting y'all know, kind of exactly when the first episode is going to be. But just know it'll be in January 2020. And I want to say thank you to my producer for helping me to bring this show out to you all. We both got a lot of shit going on in our lives, but she has continued to prioritize BRQ, which I greatly appreciate because it is my baby. And so I am grateful that someone else, believes in it too, enough to prioritize a lot of their time and energy into making sure that y'all get to hear it. So shout out to you, Charmaine. All right. So that is it for 2019. And until 2020, I'm out. Black Radical Queer is a ManeHustle Media podcast hosted by Javi and Nicole. BRQ is produced and edited by Charmaine Fury, and the show's theme music was created by The Brothers Records. You can connect with us on Twitter or Instagram at Black Rad Queer. That's BLK RAD QWR. You can also connect with us on Facebook through the Black Radical Queer Podcast Facebook fan page or the BRQ discussion group. You can get Black Rad Queer merch on teespring.com/Black Rad Queer, BLK RAD QWR. And you can leave a voicemail, call in, ask a question, those types of things on the BRQ Google Voice line. And that number is 937-601-8647.
ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.